Since I started doing this channel, we've covered lots and lots of different subjects, but I did notice in comments that there's a couple that we've not gone over yet. So I think in today's video we're going to go over gas checks, electric checks and caravan insurance. Obviously when you buy a static caravan you need to know what you're buying into. We already knew what it was going to cost us for the site fees, which was around £3,000 a year. We didn't, however, know that you also had to pay a transfer fee because it's something you're buying off this site that somebody already owns. So ownership of that van and a contract needs to be transferred to you, but that's not free. You're charged 10% of the sale price of the caravan. So if you sell a caravan for £8,000, then the person that buys it has to pay the company a further £800. And that's just to transfer the contract. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about caravan insurance. And it is an actual requirement that you get caravan insurance to be allowed on this site. It's not something that you do out of choice. You've got to do it. And then you have to send the certificate to the company just to prove that you've got it. So the most obvious thing to do is search. And normally when you search for anything like that online, you'll come across a big list of companies that all offer insurance at variable prices and with their own sets of rules. So we did a quick search on that, and when you do that, you've got to be able to know the age of your caravan and the model of that caravan as well, which we've covered in a previous video, how to find out how old your van is, and the model. This one is a Willoughby, and when you do these insurance quotes, there is lots and lots of questions. So you need to have that information at hand before you even start. So we went through the entire procedure, and then it gave us a list of companies that were willing to insure us. And it was at no surprise that there was a lot that came back saying that they wouldn't insure us. And I think that was due to the age of the van. And of course a lot of companies do new for old insurance. So if you've got a really old van, they're not going to insure you in that van in case anything happens, and then they have to give you a brand new one. And I think that's half a problem with these companies. They just want to give you as little as possible. But you've still got that peace of mind and knowing that if anything does happen to this van, you're covered and you'll get something back. So we had to approach it in a different way, and that is market value. So whatever your van is worth at that age is what you're going to get back if anything happens. But apart from that, you've also got to pay an excess, just like you do on car insurance. So there's a certain amount of money that you've got to put forward if you ever come to the point where you make a claim. And they range from £50 right up to £400, which is quite a big chunk of money to have to pay out of your own pocket when you've already paid for insurance. So we scoured through various different companies, and then we found one that we liked, and more importantly would actually insure us. Because one other thing that was amongst that list of questions was, has your site ever flooded? And if it has, they'll not touch you. Then there was a very good chance of that happening again. And if you're covered for floods, then they're definitely going to have to pay out. But we all know they don't want to. So eventually we settled for a company called Mark Bates Limited. And the only reason we settled for that one is because it was the best price and it gave us the most coverage. It doesn't, however, give you new for old. Once again, it's only market value, which is another good reason to find out how much your van's worth before you buy it, because then you have to insure it and you might get back less than what you paid to start with. So basically the premium on this van for the year was £100 and 60p, and then you've got insurance premium tax, which was another £12 and 7p. So altogether £112 and 67p. One good thing about that is you are allowed to pay it monthly. Because as with anybody, when you're in a caravan, you don't know how it's going to go. You might not like it. 6 months down the road, you might decide to move because you might have found a better deal somewhere else. So I thought, why pay the full year up front and take a chunk of money away? We can just pay it a little bit at a time. And there is a little bit of a charge on top for doing that, but it's not that much. So around about a tenner a month, you can live with that. When we insured it, it was insured up to £9,500, which is what I requested. That doesn't mean, however, that in the event of anything happening, you'll get a £9,500 payout, because they'll base it on market value. So you're likely to get a bit less. And as part of that insurance on the caravan, you also insure contents at the same time. So everything you own in this van, because in the event of a fire, you'll lose everything. So we also added contents insurance, and that was up to the value of £10,000. And also included is liability insurance, and that's up to 5 million, and also legal expenses up to 100,000. Also, as part of that insurance policy, they have got a section which tells you exactly what you're covered for, and also, more importantly, what you're not covered for. So on this particular policy, you're covered for accidental loss or damage, and that includes storms, fires and theft. And you're also covered for the exterior of that van. So if you've got a big veranda all around the outside, that's also included in that insurance. And if you've got a couple of little sheds as well outside, like we have, one that's got a washing machine in it, you're also covered for that, but only up to £500. And also loss of keys, which I thought was a good one. You can get replacement keys and locks for your van in the event that you've either lost your keys or that van has been broken into. The one that I did think were a bit strange, spoilage of food. Fluctuating temperatures causing your food to spoil. But then when you go and look at what is not insured, the first thing on that list is contents, if the van has been left unoccupied. But there is a different side to that. If you can prove that that van was forcibly or violently entered, then you can still have a claim. And according to that side of it, you have to pay a £50 excess if you make a claim for that. And I think that's quite obvious why they do that, because you could just give somebody your keys or pretend you lost your keys and somebody's let themselves in, stole everything, and then you make a claim. But really, you've got it in storage somewhere. They're just trying to cover themselves with that. Any damage by pets is not covered at all. If you get damage caused by freezing, that's also not covered. So that's why you have to make sure that all your pipes and everything are properly lagged. Wrap them in loads and loads of bubble wrap, whatever it takes. Because if you're away from this van in winter and some pipes break, which they have done a couple of times before on this site, and your van gets flooded, you're not covered at all for that. So although you're covered for flood damage, you're not covered for flood damage if it arises from pipes being frozen outside or in. So that's the kind of do's and don'ts of this policy. But we had to get it and get it in place before we even moved into this van, because the office needs a copy of that certificate. So that was all done straight away. So not as straightforward as you might think. If you live in an area that's flooded before, they won't insure you at all. If your van is of a certain age, they won't insure you at all. If you get a van of a certain age and then want to insure it as old for new, you ain't got much of a chance on that either. Pretty much everything we needed covered at that time looks like it is covered, so we were quite happy at that. So now I've been through the insurance part of being on this site, we'll look at something else which I was asked about, and that's gas and electric checks. They're things that have to be done at certain times. And you probably guessed correct. You do have to pay for them yourself. That is something else that is part of being on this site. The site won't pay for that for you. They don't get anything checked themselves. That's up to you to do. And then you have to forward that certificate to them to make sure that job's been done. And I think it costs us around £60 per test. The good news is that with the electricity, you only have to have that tested once every 3 years, but your gas has to be done every year, and that's quite obvious why. Having two big gas canisters attached to your van that's not been checked for a couple of years is a bit of a liability for the site. Anything could go wrong with them. So you have to get in touch with these people yourself, find the ones that offer the best price, get them to do the checks on a day that suits you, and then you pay them. So there's a little bit more to it than you think. It's not just a case of buying a van, because you have to pay transfer fees on top of that. Unless you've bought it off-site and had it moved to this site. But if you do that, it'll cost you £1,000 to have it moved to this site, and then they have to hook it up for you, which I believe costs us a bit more money. And then you've got to pay your site fees up front, all in one go. And if it was a private sale on this site, you've got to pay that 10% transfer fee as well. So initially starting off can be quite expensive. You've got to get your insurance. You need to make sure that the gas and electric's been checked. And if not, that's something else you're going to have to pay for. But at least when you do get your insurance, you can pay for that monthly. You don't have to shell out all at once. But another aspect of the insurance part is this is what it's cost me personally for this van, insuring what I wanted to my requirements. So thank you so much for supporting this channel. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to see what we're going to make videos about in the future, then please hit that subscribe button, press that notifications bell, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.